I love your first prediction, and I wish we had the Jamaican air horn for this one. Your first prediction, your first prediction was that Biden would hint that he's not running in 2024. What
Yeah.
say you, sir? What say you?
Uh, Not only is this not true, he definitely came out and said the total opposite. Now, I will say he was put on the spot. This was as so we could give people an update. At his first presser, he was asked this question, and not only did he say, "I'm running," but I was also running with Kamala, and that he had no doubts about it. So I was totally wrong. But I will say that necessarily might not come true, right? He might have just held his poker card, and we'll see after the midterms what ends up happening. But definitely not true. So far,
We're in it for a long haul on COVID.
yeah.
Is that
So
how would you categorize that? TBD?
absolutely,
True?
unequivocally, absolutely true. We're definitely in the long haul for COVID. Even post-vaccine world, we're going to be in this for a little bit here in 2022. I'll let you talk about it, and then we could discuss.
Well, I heard something. I think one of the reasons why we may be in for it. First of all, right now we're experiencing kind of a resurgence, and that's tragic. And I see the everything's going up. But I think the bigger issue is, remember how we talked previously about how there was how the flu had kind of died down to a certain extent. Now I heard something where people who suffer allergies because they wear the mask so much are having less allergy symptoms. So
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that's not. I wonder, one, I think we are in for a long haul, but I also, and a friend disagrees with me on this. I also think that some of our lifestyle adaptations that we've made because of COVID may stay post COVID. She thinks we're going to go back to normal. I think we're now going to permanently be. There's going to be some things with COVID that'll probably stay. If not stay, they're always at the ready. You and I will always have masks, right? You know how we had to run out and get masks. We'll always have masks at the ready, gloves at the ready. It
for
might not
sure.
always be part of our daily routine, but that's where I'm at. So now we're going to move into your second prediction, and I'm going to need you to even explain it a little bit more to me because I'm going to read it to you, but I'm going to need you to explain it. So you said Trump downfall reveals itself. So essentially, we get an idea where it will come from. So I kind of I think that's true, but expand. I want to just make sure he's in the middle of his downfall. He's not there yet, but we see it's happening. What did you mean when you said the Trump downfall reveals itself?
The prediction would be like he wouldn't necessarily be in court, or the gun wouldn't be smoking, but I think we would know who would be holding the gun, if that makes sense. So there was going to be something that popped up that said, okay, that's going to be where it happens. So I know you said it's kind of true, but I actually think it's TBD right now. So it's not true yet, because the reason is that is we see the Southern District in New York has a case, and now the Georgia case is relatively new. I think that happened after we made the prediction. So right now it's just kind of up in the air. So I don't think it's revealed itself yet. Your second prediction, fairly accurate, but I'll let you judge, is Trump won't pre-pardon himself prior to leaving on January 20th.
Well, I think it came true. Now they say he could have done a pocket pardon, but the more that I've heard, that a pocket pardon would have kind of been impossible because it would have had to have been filed somewhere, and there would have been some type of way that the Biden people would have seen it.
For sure.
So I don't. I mean, he didn't even pre-pardon Matt Gaetz, who was definitely going for a pre-pardon. So, um, and I think that I think there's a little bit of ego there. I also think that he probably faced legal exposure.
Hmm.
There's lots of reasons why he potentially didn't do it. The funny thing is, in his mind, he may have done it, and there may be that I get. You know what? I believe this. I believe he could have done it, but whoever's responsible for making it real never followed through. I believe that's a possibility. Your third prediction: Google, Facebook, Twitter continue to be in the news despite Democrats being in charge. I'd say that's true. I mean, not to the extent that they were under Trump, but I still think that they're very newsworthy. They're going to be there for a while. But what is your assessment on your prediction there?
Yeah, basically that. But my prediction was basically that Trump was kind of grinding on these companies because he felt he was personally being silenced. So it was more personable. But we saw the Biden and Democrats being surrounding the white supremacy and the hateful language, the Church Christ shooter, all this stuff. We saw what just happened with 8chan and Ankong, where these websites were taken down after the January 6th insurrection. So right now, I would say it's true, but still TBD, because I expect hearings soon enough, and I expect some of these companies to change. Right, Facebook is a breeding ground. YouTube is a breeding ground right now. Twitter has done a better job, but still late to the process. So I definitely think this is going to continue and continue to be more true. But as of right now, they're still kind of in the ether of the conversation.
So my next recommendation was economy won't recover as fast as we hope. I think it's too early to tell. I mean, what do you say?
I
What do
think
you
it's a
think?
touchdown. I think it's solid. We've seen Biden and his financial people say it's going to be slow and it's going to depend on people getting back to work and it's going to depend on the virus. Look, right now we're in a situation where, sorry to run with your point, but right now we're in a situation where the economy is tied to the virus. So as long as COVID-19 is kind of present in everyday life, I think the economy will get better and it's continue to get better, especially with COVID relief and the infrastructure bill. But it's going to be tied to COVID, and COVID is going to be a slow haul, long haul. So I think the economy is going to be the long haul.
Well, what's fascinating is I think it's kind of I think one of the things that's weird is I think though there's optimism, which I think is weird. I think they know it's going to be a long haul, but it's one thing when you have it happen and you're like, oh shit, the economy's bad. It's not going. I think the thing that helps Biden is that there's not an expectation of an overnight turnaround. And I also think that, especially when you look at some of the stuff that's done in the American Recovery Act, some of the things he's talking about in his infrastructure plan, he might be making substantive long term change. And so what's funny is, in many ways, I don't want to say we want it to take forever, but might some of the changes that Biden can get away with, and I think there's a lot more flexibility, is a lot more space than, say, Obama had in 2009 when he took over, because this is a really devastating setback. Part of me wonders, though, if this is probably not almost more advantageous than 2009, strictly because people are hurting so much and they see the fallacies in our economy, so to speak, that they're willing to make some of those substantive changes that will be longer lasting, that just don't switch every time there's a new administration. So now, your fourth prediction was social justice promises not kept by major companies.
Yeah,
I'd say it's kind of TBD. I don't know. Where are you on this? I
I
put it
think
in the
it's.
TBD.
I'm gonna run with true, but let me say why. I made this prediction because post George Floyd, there was a lot of companies who were saying we're gonna change everything about us. We're gonna hire more people of color. We're gonna hire more women. It was just broad strokes that these companies were promising, and now we're seeing. We talked about it with is it Jeff or Jed Leglum on Twitter?
Yeah, Jet Luggum or Judd
Yeah,
Luggum.
sorry. Yeah, he is breaking down that these companies post January 6th, post insurrection, are now doubling back, right? They're giving back to these right wing kind of conspiracy theories candidates that I'm going to call. I'll go on the record and say that. So these social promises that were made by these big companies are just, they backed out because I think these social companies want both best of both worlds, right? They want to be cool and hip on Twitter, and then behind the scenes, kind of pay the people that they want to pay to benefit them. So what we're doing now is we're making sure that all that stuff comes to the light, and you're not going to be able to make it both ways, right? We saw this with the All-Star game in Georgia. We're seeing it with Georgia and Texas and Michigan and Arizona. Is these companies are going to have to pick a side. My guess is they're always going to pick the side of the people, hopefully. So we'll see if these campaign kind of contributions stop. But for right now, I'm saying that these promises weren't kept simply because they have gone back to being normal activity for now.
Well, see, I look over it. I'd say, yeah, if you were to go ahead and take a snapshot, yes. But then I also think, though, I think if you're playing a long game, it very well may be kept. And I think talking about Georgia, talking about Texas, think about it. I was really upset with both the way Coke and Delta handled Georgia on the front end. Now on the back end, they're doing the right thing. So much so that a lot of the Texas-based companies are spooked. AT&T, American Airlines, Southwest, that they are doing the right thing. So I think what you're going to see is, I think the snapshot is, yeah, promises not kept, but that's only if we're doing it from a snapshot perspective, right?
But I will bring up your fourth prediction because it's very, very similar, kind of in that same realm. Your fourth prediction, if I'm not wrong, was this idea that there would be more progress with social justice, but it would come from the people, not necessarily these corporations. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's still to be determined, and obviously, if we look at what's going on right now in Minnesota, what's happening, although they're not really on the streets out in Virginia, um, I think it's really to tell. Um, I think it's going to be. I do think that I think this is going to ultimately will be in a better place by the end of the year, but I just think it's too early to tell right now. Is my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think your general thought was by the end of the year we would have more people as allies than we did at the start of the year. So I would probably say that's pretty accurate so far. But you're right, right? We just were in a spot where it's like there's still it feels like last June. It still feels like last June with Minnesota, the uprising. Chicago's gonna maybe deal with an interesting thing this week if something happens. So it still kind of feels like we're in that moment. So it might just be too early to tell.
Now, your fifth prediction came true. We didn't have to wait until March. Your fifth prediction was Trump doesn't make it to March on Twitter. He gets banned. So obviously, this was made pre-banning, and no, he did make it to March. He didn't even make it. What? How close after January 6th did he get banned?
He
How
got banned 2 days later. He got banned the
two?
8th.
Yeah. So kudos to you on that pronouncement. What are your thoughts on a Trumpless Twitter?
It feels just more focused on look, everybody's Twitter timeline is curated for them and their content, and I understand that. But I see a lot of every time Trump tweeted, it was like that movie, like, squirrel, squirrel. It was like we were trying to just everybody was dealing with like it was like just the you're on the highway going right, and then it's just like a car crash right here, so you tend to look over. And I just think we're more focused, and we're having I feel like more nuanced conversations, more layered, in depth conversations, and we've seen like there's been Trump started releasing press statements, and everybody would jump on it. And I don't know if you saw, he released one today. Just wasn't news. Like people are stop paying attention. There's people who say Trump released a statement. There's nothing in there. Just move on. And I know that it released, but I don't have to go read it. So I think it's just been more peaceful. It's been more fun. It feels like it used to a little bit. But yeah, the prediction came true almost right away, which is pretty funny.
So my final prediction, and I think it's undecided, is world leaders show a lot of love to Biden-Harris shade Trump. I'd say we're going in that direction, but there's not really been a whole. There's not really been a lot of international action. What's your take?
Yeah, I think COVID slowed down a lot of those international trips and photo ops for sure. I will say though that like when Biden was inaugurated and we saw some of those readouts and we saw like Canada say it's good to have America back on our side. Like I think that stuff was all Trump shade. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you credit for being true here because I feel like all of that was pretty much Trump shade for sure. And what's crazy is when they officially called the election, there was countries who were celebrating, you popping off fireworks. So it was like there's been an international kind of deep relief. So I'm going to say you're true because there was a lot of world leaders who were saying it's good to have our allies back because you've been gone for 4 years.